Hello, I'm Dan.
And I'm Simon.
And this is the Wikicast, a podcast where Wikipedia takes us to a random article each weweek and we talk about what we find.
Dan, you did it again.
Each week?
Yeah, you said each week.
You know what? I didn't even read the script.
But it's staying in. It's staying in.
Brilliant.
What are we... Right, plough on.
Simon, what are we talking about this week?
Well, this week, Dan, I'm so glad you asked, in a totally error-free, definitely not repeated a few times intro.
Fantastic.
We are talking about the one, the only, you all know him, many of you love him, Fortunato Arriola.
You're joking. Not old Fortunato Arriola.
I know. My favourite section of the boob.
Yes. The most lucky area of the boob, I think, Fortunato.
Yeah. Right, so this article is exactly what I wanted to highlight, I think, with this podcast. It exemplifies what I thought I wanted the Wikicast to be about, and it's only taken us 75 episodes to get there.
Marvelous.
Because I've never heard of Fortunato Arriola before, and it's a small, tiny little nugget of human history, a little meme of human culture, and it's just kind of interesting, really. So, who is he, I hear you ask? He was born in 1827 in Cosala, Sinaloa, Mexico. I think that's a region. Yeah, okay. And he was a painter. He was a painter of portraits and luminous tropical landscapes that were very popular in San Francisco, where he came to live in 1857. Now, how much do you know about American art? Because I don't know very much, I have to admit.
Not a great deal. I'm definitely more knowledgeable on kind of European stuff. But
we spent a month once trying to remember who Norman Rockwell was. Do you remember? It was like there was Nighthawks was in the Harry's in Exeter, and we were like, oh god, who did that painting? Like we were worrying about it for like ages because I don't think we knew the name of it either. And so it's not like you can Google, painting street corner moody, possibly American. Actually, what if you do that? Hang on, painting. I'm googling it now. Street corner moody American. No, it doesn't come up, actually.
Golly, what happens if you take
no, it does.
American
It does if you go
out?
onto the second page of Google image search, but, who does that? So, this is a subject that's new to us. Again, something that I hope that we would learn stuff by doing this podcast. He was the son of a wealthy landowner. He was a handsome, distinguished, and cultivated man. He had green fingers. He was self-taught as an artist and began his career painting portraits. He had a studio near the corner of Kearney and Clay Streets that was a gathering place for Mexican exiles, a place of intellectual ferment and the occasional brawl. It's just like Firehouse. Among his students were Toby Rosenthal and Ransom Holdredge. Great names.
What a name, Ransom.
Ransom. How you doing there? Here's 5 good ones for you. The name's Ransom Holdredge.
Jeez.
Most of his work, imagined views of Central America, disappeared after he died. In 1872, he travelled to New York City to exhibit 2 paintings at the National Academy of Design. He was returning to San Francisco on a ship called the Bienville, I guess you pronounce that, which was carrying a load of dynamite.
Right.
It exploded at Watling Island, Bahamas on August 15th. And then just to clarify, he died at sea. As if somehow being on a ship which was carrying a load of dynamite which exploded might not be fatal. I've never heard of anybody going out like that before.
Wow.
On a transit back home, you think you're safe, but lo and behold, what's in the trunk of the car? A load of dynamite.
He's lived quite the life.
Yeah, well,
and died quite the death.
He died at sea, leaving a widow and 6 children.
Goodness.
And then there's a lovely little note here at the bottom, which is one of my favourite little things about Wikipedia, where you get these little nuggets that nobody asked for, but somebody felt obliged to include. There's a little one line at the bottom that just says, several of his paintings are in the private collection of actor Steve Martin.
Oh, weird. He recently did a masterclass.
Oh, did you get one of those interminable Facebook adverts?
Yeah, and he's teaching comedy, I think. And the irony, of course, is that nothing he does in the trailer for this is funny.
Because he used to be like the top of the game, didn't he? But then he definitely he did like Cheaper by the Dozen and those kinds of movies that were like... He was like a proto Adam Sandler, I guess.
Oh, you said the A word.
Adam?
Yeah, specifically in reference to Adam Sandler.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What a waste of flesh. Anyway.
Well, yeah. For those of you who haven't watched it's the Jack and Jill Red Letter Media. They did a 2-parter on how Adam Sandler films are a massive con and just money laundering schemes.
I loathe that man.
Yeah, it's pretty awful.
Fiery passion of 1,000 suns.
But Steve Martin has done some funny stuff and owns several paintings by Fortunato Arriola.
Well, I've just put Fortunato Arriola into Google Images, and I must admit, I really like them.
So I'm looking at Sunset on the Sacramento River, which looks like... You know what this looks like? It needs Baumgartner restoration to give it a once-over. You know the YouTube channel, the guy who restores the art? Yeah. That's got to be some kind of varnish that needs to be taken off with conservation-grade solvent and using some Q-tips. I've watched so many of them that I feel like I could do the job as long as, if it's exactly like one of the previous ones. It's like how I think I could paint Bob Ross paintings because I've watched like 100 episodes of The Joy of Painting. But yeah, you're right. They're good. The clouds are actually very Bob Ross-like, don't you think?
It's like, it reminds me of, when we went to the Maurits house in Den Haag. Did we go there? Did you go there with me?
No, I didn't go to Den Haag with you. We went to the Rijksmuseum.
Well, in the Rijksmuseum, I believe they have some Vermeer, but they have a wider exhibition of Vermeer's work in the Maurits house, which features the girl with the pearl earring.
Oh yes, yeah, famously.
And he was known in his craft as like the master of light. He could paint with light like no other artist could, and I get a similar vibe from this Arriola chap. The difference being his pictures, rather than looking almost like photorealistic in their use of light, it's like he's painting off like a wreath of film. It's got that kind of grainy film quality, which I think is an intended thing. That the light is kind of washed across the whole image, like it is when you're looking through film, rather than just looking with your eyes.
It's actually, it's useless having a painter appear on a podcast because we're having to describe all of the art to you, and so we're just like rendering it, much worse. But it is. I'm looking at on Google Image, for me at least, it's the 5th result, and it's a very cyan kind of coloured landscape with the moon behind some palm trees and a cow, I think, in front, and it kind of looks like almost like early Salvador Dali, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it almost looks like you could make it sound like a slightly underexposed image. The darks are very dark and the lights are very light. I like it. I'm keen on this chap.
Yeah, Fortunato Arriola, the lucky boob. Well, he wasn't very lucky in his death. That's a hell of a way to go. My God. Although actually, on a related note, you'd be very welcome to join us. We've been playing some Black Wake recently, which I don't assume you've ever played.
Is that the boat one?
So it's like Guns of Icarus, but it's on Age of Sail ships. Yeah. So
I desperately want to play this game.
Oh, it's so good. Well, we do it every Tuesday on the stream, and we've been playing it a little bit. We've been doing it a little bit sort of off stream as well, and yeah, it's seriously fun. We did a big stream on Tuesday where we actually basically filled out a server with people from the community and other people jumping on, including Digby from ZF Clan, who you may know from Soviet Wombles videos, but also is a big streamer in his own right. And he joined us and was super into it. He was like, I love this game. It just kind of faded away in popularity, and now like other people are playing it again. It's just really fun. So yeah, for those of you who are at home, it's I have had the experience of having a ship just blow up underneath me. It's a very it's very visceral in how it depicts cannonball violence. I have seen Hugo and Ed and Danvi and all these people from the Discord absolutely go just yeeted off the side of a pirate ship with this ragdoll physics. We rammed a ship the other day, and a guy literally just burst. It was like he just collapsed into a selection of steaks. And then I about a second later, there was just a black screen with the text, "You were shot in the head," which is the only kind of death where you don't get to see your demise. So yes, definitely buy it. Definitely join us. We do it on Tuesday nights. You'd be very, very welcome to join us.
In a similar vein, I want to play Sea of Thieves.
See, that's the thing. They're very related games, but what I've heard about Sea of Thieves is that because it's more open world, and it's less combat oriented. Obviously, there is a lot of combat in it, but it's not as in depth as the Blackwake stuff. But that would be fine as a game if there was enough content in the rest of the game to make up for the lack of combat. And what I've been told is that there just isn't enough content. It's like a AAA title game in terms of price, but there's not very much to do in it. Now that might have changed. I'm very willing to be corrected in correspondence, but I that's what I've been told. Whereas Blackwake, I think, is £7. I bought a bunch of copies for people in the community. Actually, you can buy one yourself because I spent last month, because of lockdown. Obviously, very difficult to spend money on anything, frankly. Last month, I think I spent. I'm just going to look up my Monzo statistics. I spent £100 on Steam last month, Dan.
Wow. That's pretty good going.
Admittedly, 35 of that was for the community. But yeah, I bought... what did I buy? What was the £20? Oh, no. £20 of that, I'm sorry, is for Just Dance on the Switch. But I got Mechanicus, which is one of my favourite games I've ever played, and I play on Sundays on stream, and I'm desperate to get back to it, which is like XCOM but 40k, and it's got most incredible soundscape. Like the sound design and the music is so good. Whereas you, am I correct in saying you've been playing a lot of Worlds of Warcraft?
I have. I haven't played as much in the last week or so, but that's pretty much what I've been playing. I've been on another Chomsky binge over the past week. No, I saw
this. Yeah, because I bought some Chomsky. I bought Manufacturing Consent, which I need to read.
Cool. Yeah. So I have The Essential Chomsky and Understanding Power, I think, are the two collections of his works that I have. And then the other day I watched Requiem for the American Dream, which is, as I understand it, it's like a slightly more abridged, considerably more abridged version of what you find in Understanding Power. And he goes through the 10 principles of understanding power and wealth, and is kind of looking at this idea of the American dream and social class mobility was something that caused the majority of early immigration to America was based on this idea that you could come with nothing, and if you worked hard and you wanted it enough, you could make something of yourself. And Chomsky was saying, by the end of that was pretty much gone. As we were rocking into the 60s, and now it's even less so. And this documentary only came out, I think, in 2018. But it's really fascinating.
Has it got like a bunch of title sequences, which has got like dollar bills being?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen this. Yeah, I remember thinking this was really interesting.
It's really cool, and especially how he relates these ideas of basically what's happening now is government needed a solution to this problem of there being too much democracy, so they came up with this idea, and this idea is basically what happened in ancient in Plato's Republic. However, Plato's Republic went in a slightly different way, and he relates it back to antiquity. He relates it to early 17th, late 16th century legislation in Britain, and it's just it's just repeating itself over and over again, and it's crazy. And then I contrasted that with, as I reach over for my copy of The Economist, there was a really, really fascinating the title article of this. Well, it's actually last week's article. Is called "After the Disease, the Debt. Governments will owe vast amounts after the crisis. Here's how to deal with it." And that's the most terrifying paragraph that I'll briefly read to you now. An astonishing deterioration in the public finances is unfolding. America's government is set to run a deficit of 15% of GDP this year, a figure that will go up if more stimulus is needed. Across the rich world, the IMF says gross government debt will rise by 6 trillion to 66 trillion at the end of this year, or 105% of GDP to 122%, a greater increase than was seen in any year during the global financial crisis. If the lockdown lasts longer, the load will be greater. Managing such colossal debts will burden Western societies for decades to come. And that's the second paragraph of like a 3-4 page article. And it's really interesting stuff, and the proposals are really interesting. So I'm curious as to see the methods that they outline in this article, whether that is seen in the coming weeks and months of the lockdown. But it's really interesting.
Yeah,
and terrifying.
It's I mean, that's I think the word that I would probably choose. It's spooky times, to put it mildly. And we're very lucky in that we are not a hugely at-risk group. For people like, for example, our parents who are older, and also people that are friends like Dan Hanvey, who is super high risk. It's not just a hypothetical. It is, if I leave the house, there is a very real chance that I will catch something and die. Whereas we are free to, if we want to go to the shops to pick something up, It's. I hope everybody out there is staying safe. I looked at the webcam. Weirdly, then I've been streaming so much that I was just about to launch into a PSA, and I reflexively looked at my webcam, which is covered up with white tack. Yeah, well, it's covered up with white tack because of Pixel Girl. A point which I will return to. I have a story to tell you in just a sec. Just wanted to say, I hope people in the community are staying well. They're probably all sick of everybody on podcasts and on videos telling them this, but obey the social distancing. Don't listen to Elon Musk. Don't be a and wash your hands. That's just, all I wanted to say. So, about Pixel Girl. So, she has really gotten into her running recently, as have I. We've been running a lot together. And she has a Garmin smartwatch. So,
right.
It logs her heart rate and her location and all these kind of things.
I immediately thought of a smartwatch entirely made of fur, because you said Garmin and I heard ermine.
Oh, I thought you would go for Charmin. It's just like a bunch of toilet rolls. Probably about as valuable as a smartwatch, to be fair. It's really useful, and it's allowed her to keep track of her heart rate while she's running, and it tells her if it's getting a bit high. Like, we were running the other day, and it was really quite warm, and I think her heart rate was at like 196 or something. And we were like, oh yeah, we need to
196.
Stop. It was it peaked at something.
Oh my goodness!
Was it? It was something absolutely outrageous.
196 is insanely high.
It was like the peak heart rate for her age group. I'm actually just going to double check. Peak heart rate for year old. Let's have a look.
Because a resting heart rate of a healthy young person is what? It's something like between 65 and 85.
And hers is about 60, I think. She's got quite a low resting heart rate. I think it might have been about 180, 190. It was like, for a 24-year-old, maximum heart rate is like 190, 200. So anyway, I'm getting away from the point. In a podcast known for not getting on tangents, I'm going off on one. And basically, it's very clever in that it will text me if she goes on a run. Or a walk, like any kind of activity, and it will say, here, this is her location, you can follow this link, and this is the contact, whatever.
So you have become Big Brother in this.
I have become voluntarily. This was her. She has put this in place. And I got a text the other day. I think it was on Monday. That said, we think that Pixel Girl has gotten into an incident based on her heart rate and the fact that she's been stationary. So I immediately got my phone and I was like, oh, hang on, right. I don't know who I should call first. Should I call an ambulance or should I call her? And then actually, before I could do anything, she called me. And I thought, well, that means it's not as bad as I thought it was, because I thought, Max, what's happened is her heart rate's massively spiked, but she's in one place. That means she's either had a heart attack or she's been hit by a car or something. And she called me and she was like, oh no, don't worry, it's fine. A caterpillar landed on me, and
of course.
What had happened was a caterpillar had landed on her top, and she had freaked the fuck out.
Yeah.
Her heart rate had just spiked. She was running, and then stayed still trying to wipe this thing off whilst her heart was going like the clappers. And then she called me, and I will have to put in some of the audio because I recorded a little bit of this call because it was the most ridiculous experience. She she was in quite a state when she called me. Let's put it like that. What happened?
It's eyes.
What? Sorry?
It's off me! I've got it! Oh my god! Okay, it's gone. Oh.
Is it? Did you kill it, or is it still alive?
No. Oh.
Okay.
Oh my god. I need to blow my nose. I don't know if this leaf's poisonous, but I need to...
Honey, do you realise how few poisonous species there are in the UK? And then I was like, oh, hang on, but how big was this caterpillar? This is you're not afraid of insects. And I will put in the Discord, Dan, the image that she sent me.
Okay.
Of what caused this, what I thought was a heart attack. This was the terrifying beast that she was dealing with.
Wow, it's like a Zeppelin. It's like some behemoth of a dirigible. It's tiny.
It's about 5 millimeters long.
Yeah.
It's the tiniest thing.
Oh, it's really cute.
I thought it was really cute. And I've seen these all over. And it made her watch think she'd had a heart attack. But then she put the phone down. And then about 2 minutes later, I got another phone call from her. And she was really upset.
For fuck's sake. Right, I'm just going to be bold and just remove this one with my fingers. Get off me. Get off me now. Go. I think I must have, gone through a nest or something. I can't deal with this. There's going to be so many caterpillars.
Honey, look, no, I promise you that no matter how many caterpillars there are, you're going to be okay. Look, they're scary to you, and that's what matters.
I'm coming home now.
Okay, I'll see you in a bit. I'll have the crisis blanket ready.
Thank you, bye. I love you.
I love you too. You're going to be okay, hon, I promise. And she had something like she'd found 5 of them all over her. And I was like, where are you running?
Yeah, was she running through cocoons?
Yeah, I was like, where are they falling from trees onto you? I don't understand, unless you're rolling around in the ground, how this many caterpillars have gotten on you.
Yeah, she'd gone on more of a run than she thought, and she was just running in and out of domes at the Eden Project.
Yeah, it's the only logical explanation. So, I'm sorry, Pixel Girl, because you will end up listening to this, but I was having to deal with this conversation where I was like, no, don't worry, you're safe, you're fine. The tiny caterpillars are not gonna hurt you, I promise you. And trying to balance being a supportive boyfriend with this is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
but I feel like we kind of we worked through it, and she now sees the funny side of the fact she may have slightly overreacted. Yeah, sorry, I thought that I should relay that.
Absolutely.
But Dan, I think it's time that we go over to you, because much as you haven't been singing, do you have a choral piece of the week this fortnight?
I really do. And this will be my piece of the week. Drum roll, please. So my choral piece of the week this week is good because it is actually it is a choral piece, and it is just one. It is just one piece of music. It's not a.
Yeah, we've had some cheating in past weeks.
Yeah, a little bit. Now you will know of the glorious shining soul that is Tom Noon.
Hugo Wickham. Oh
no, this is Mr. Noon Jr. Now he studied at King's College London and was part of their chapel choir there. And last week they released a rather exciting CD. And on that CD contains a piece called The Cloud Messenger. Which is a forgotten work for choir and orchestra by Holst.
I think I've seen this like in recommendeds on YouTube. I want to say
it's quite a big deal, and it's really, really good. I really like it. There's a fantastic video that goes along with it, where you can spot Mr. Tom making lots of low noises, and it's very good. And you can hear the rest of the Choir of King's College London. But it's really excellent. It's been published under Delphian Records. You can find it. I think it's on. There's certainly, if you go to the Delphian Records Facebook page, there's a link to it. But I imagine it's going to be. It's available to order now on Delphian Records, but you can get a little taster before it goes live proper.
Right.
But it's really good. So that's The Cloud Messenger by Gustav Holst, choir and orchestra. It's thrilling and great, and they've done a really good job.
I will have to check out, because presumably there are other recordings are available. Yeah, I'll have to check something out on Spotify. Well, that's a fun one. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, that's all right. Thank you, Tom.
For so many things, really. Now, do you have anything that you'd want to talk about in Critics Corner?
I think I probably jumped the gun a bit by
we
talking
both
about that
did.
Chomsky documentary. I have been listening to Under the Skin, the podcast with Russell Brand, where he talks to various folk, and that's really good. That's a great one that he's done recently. It's about an hour and 10 minutes long with Ricky Gervais. There's another really interesting one that he has a conversation with Professor Brian Cox, and another with Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh, okay. Oh, well.
And they make for really interesting listening. So I'd mention that, and I would also mention that Louis Theroux is doing an isolation podcast.
We're in Critics Corner now, Dan. So you've already mentioned it.
Well, there you go.
Seamless.
Yeah, amazing.
I was actually going to mention the Louis Theroux documentary podcast if you weren't already aware of it.
He interviews John Ronson.
John Ronson?
Ron Johnson. John Johnson Ronson.
Are you all right? Who do you mean? I have no idea who you mean.
Are we talking about the same podcast?
Probably, but who's John Ronson? That sounds like a made-up name.
I think that's his actual name.
Wait, John Ronson?
Yeah, he's a documentary maker, John Ronson.
Oh.
This is who he interviews on the...
I recognise the book covers. Yeah.
They're strikingly similar folk, but he interviews the first episode is him interviewing John Ronson.
Right, so I don't know why. I just suddenly doubted that was a real person's name. I had no reason to.
I mean, it's quite unique. There's very few Ronsons. Oh, speaking of a unique name and there being relatively few of them, I was doing a little bit of family history reading and things because I'm big into my kind of genealogy and heraldry and things. And I came across it is now a hotel in, hang on, I need to just find here we go. Yeah. It's now a hotel in Lincolnshire called Cleatham Hall. That's Cleatham. And it's a very lovely house, and the house has its own Wikipedia page that gives the kind of the history of the country house before it was a hotel. And there's some interesting stuff. I was reading about it, and I thought, oh yeah, okay. It's grade 2 listed. The main building was constructed in 1855, but some of it dates back to the 18th and 17th century. The hall was, in its early years, in ownership of the ancestors of Charles Darwin. I thought, oh, that's interesting. And if you go onto stick Cleatham Hall into Google, Simon.
All right, here we go.
And find the Wikipedia page. And when you get to the Wikipedia page, click it and read the third bullet point on the contents page.
So it goes architecture, early residence, the Moore family.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very
cool.
I
did some reading about this, and we bought it off, basically, historically, we bought it off residents of...
and that actually is your ancestry.
Yeah, they're the same. They're from they're all from the same part of the world. So it won't be my direct line.
Right.
But it is the Moore family. In fact, there's a website called The Family Moore, MAW, that basically tracks, because it's such an unusual name. It tracks the kind of the sprawling history of where the Moores went. And it goes over like the UK, Australia, Canada, America. It's crazy. It's really interesting. I found this recently, but towards the end of this bit on who lived there and for how long, blah, 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 their youngest son, Wing Commander Roger Moore, which is a fantastic name and title, was famous for the part he played in the escape
James
from...
Bond.
From a German prisoner of war camp, Stalag Luft 3, in 1943. The incident was immortalised in the book The Wooden Horse by Eric Williams and the subsequent movie of the same name. So I've now been looking up where I can find a copy of this book, and he's written an autobiography with his family of this amazing story in from the war. And I've been blown away by how cool this guy sounds like an absolute legend. And also Wing Commander Roger Moore. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
That's
doesn't get much
so
better
cool.
than that. Wow.
So it doesn't really belong in Critics' Corner, but I think it's worth mentioning because it's really interesting.
Well, the thing is, Dan, we make the rules with this podcast. We
That's
can do
true,
whatever
actually,
we want.
We do. Yeah, we do.
Suck it up, listeners.
For better or for worse.
I mean, I don't have a huge amount to contribute to Critics' Corner. I've just started reading Dune by Frank Herbert, which I know is one of these sort of seminal science fiction works, which everybody who likes sci-fi should read. But I've only just got around to it. I was talking to my dad about it actually last night. I asked if he'd read it, and he was like, "No, I was too busy reading Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and Lord of the Rings, so just being nerdy in a different way." So he didn't have time to read Dune. Because
I've ordered a book actually.
Oh yeah.
If we're going to and simply because again it was mentioned weirdly. I read it it appeared in The Guardian, and also then appeared in The Economist. And it's called The Discomfort of Evening by, and I'm going to really butcher this because it's Dutch, Marieke Lucas Reinveld. And The Guardian prefaces it as a remarkable debut novel about a Dutch farm girl and her strict Christian family is unflinching and disturbing. But it's the author is 28 years old, and there's some extracts that you can read from it, and the prose is just amazing. It's so poetic. Translated by Michelle Hutchinson, Reinfeld's writing is raw and impassive, though often grotesquely vivid in its descriptions. Skinned knuckles look like ruptured prawns' heads. Bits of wet crisps in the swimming pool stick to your feet like blisters. Jazz has a singular imagination too. She pictures her dead granny's face beginning to ooze eggnog as thin as yolk out of eye sockets and port. Like, it sounds really, really intense. But I love reading translated works because you get these amazing bits of it. It reads almost like poetry, because obviously, like reading an English book, there are turns of phrase and little kind of idiosyncrasies that we all know that have found their way into the nation's idiolect over centuries. Whereas you all of them seem really different and new and exciting when you get the foreign equivalents of those. So that's the Discomfort of Evening, and I've ordered it, so it should be coming. I'm quite excited.
Oh, wow. Because I think, I'm sure that you probably figured the same as me in that this is the perfect time to get into reading. Yeah. Would you say that you've been reading a lot anyway recently? Because in your degree, you didn't do a huge amount because you were reading so much for the degree.
Yeah, I didn't do much reading for pleasure because there was just the sheer quantity of work to read. Yeah. Either novels or papers and things. I've read a fair bit. I haven't read a great deal, to be honest. I've been enjoying just, doing more kind of physical things, so gardening and knitting or whatever. But I recently reorganized the bookshelf.
Oh, what?
I read an interesting thing about cultivating home libraries, and I thought, ooh, okay, I'm going to give that a go. And I've now I've also added onto the shelf a kind of feature shelf of where I keep all the kind of booze in the house because I no longer have. When my housemate was here, we had a cocktail cabinet where we kept everything, and that was quite nice. But because that's gone, because he's moved out, I now have a kind of little feature bit in the middle of the bookshelf where there's the cocktail shaker and various different spirits and drinks and things.
So, is it just you in the house at the moment, or do you have any company in the house?
It's just me,
right?
And it's quite nice actually. I've realised I'm really very happy in my own kind of solitude.
You're like a Miss Havisham kind of.
Yeah, and I think that probably is because, you know, I spent so long away from family in Australia, as you will know, and I've probably mentioned it on the podcast before, but you know, a good year and a half at least, close to 2 years, was me staying with family friends in Australia, as my parents had to move back to Europe, and then going from there straight to working in Yorkshire before I came down to uni, and then going straight to uni. It basically meant that for, you know, 4, 5, 6, nearly 6.5 years, I wasn't at home.
Was it
I'd still
that
call
long?
and talk. Yeah, if you tally it all up through, so like all of uni, that year before and in Australia, I would go home, but it might be for like while I was at uni, it might be for Christmas or something, but not actually living at home. I became quite kind of self-reliant, not so much in perhaps like financially when I was
you're a
teenager.
kid.
Yeah, absolutely. But in keeping one's own kind of confidence and not going mad. So I'm all right.
He says, "I'm all right. I promise.
I'm fine. He says,
I'm good for it, mate. I'm just trying
to get all these bugs that I can feel under my skin. You know, otherwise I feel completely fine. And of course we have been blessed with really lovely weather. It's only been raining really this week, but previously we've had just week after week of comically lovely weather. It's been about 22 degrees at least in Exeter.
Yeah, I mean, you probably got the best weather in the country actually down there, because here it's been nice, but not
stunning.
Well, you're making me all jealous now. You're making me wish that I was back down. I still think of Exeter as being kind of home. I don't know if that's stupid.
I don't think so.
I just was there for so long, and I think also like because I went through a huge amount of personal development when I was there. That like, you know, I felt like I definitely became who I am now whilst I was at Exeter.
Yeah.
So,
and I think too, what's important is the time, the kind of the reason you were in Exeter and the life you were living for all that time that you were here meant that you were more kind of in tune with and active within the kind of wider Exeter community and everything that's going on. So it wasn't simply because you resided there for an extended period of time. It was that you were actually kind of active in that place. Whereas like you could move to somewhere, you know, say I moved to London and had a really full-on job. I might spend a similar amount of time there. But if it's just all work and you're not actually kind of getting out and getting to know the place and know the people, it probably wouldn't have the same feeling.
Yeah, and I think quite apart from the fact that like I just didn't really enjoy my time at Oxford quite so much. Like as you say, I wasn't so involved in the broader community. Like as Exeter is, I identify with Exeter as a city. I think a fair bit more because I was so involved in doing stuff at the cathedral and the churches all over the city. Whereas when I was an undergrad, I wasn't doing that so much. And it's kind of funny really in that like I always say this to people when they're choosing where they want to study, and it's like, you know, it's not just about going to uni there. It is about picking a home and making this city where you will identify as being your new home. And it's just picking based on, you know, whether the department is good. That's obviously important, but it's not the be all and end all, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking about this with it might have been my parents or friends or something, but I was thinking about when I was like a month away from due to like leaving Australia. I had received my IB results, and it would have been like a couple of weeks more, and then I'd be going. So the thought was on my mind of like, right, UCAS, what's happening there? And I'd applied to kind of various places up and down the country, and had been putting applications across for Oxbridge, And I look back and I think kind of, oh, did I... Because of the time that I left Australia, I would have had to have waited for the next round of Oxbridge entries because the Southern Hemisphere exams are all weirdly timed. So I ended up not going down that route. I applied to kind of non-Oxbridge unis and then ended up here. And I thought, I was looking back and thought, do I kind of regret not having seen where it went and maybe having ended up at a college at Cambridge? And then I think about it and go, well, actually, probably not, because I think of who I am now, and I absolutely wouldn't be the person I am now were it not for all of the things that have happened by coming to Exeter. Like, I am so shaped that by the second week of Freshers' Week in my first year, I went to the chapel choir Come and Sing, and knew from that point that this, if I did one thing at uni, one extracurricular thing, it would be this. I was obsessed and adored it, and it was completely new to me. If I hadn't had that experience, and I think if the chapel choir hadn't been as welcoming as it was and as kind of forward thinking as it is, because it, you know, if you compare it, while it's similar in kind of structure to a collegiate college chapel choir, it's very different too in the opportunities and the frequency and everything. So I probably wouldn't have ended up doing that had I gone somewhere else. And as a result, I'd be doing different things, and I would be completely different to the person I am now. I wouldn't be obsessing over the music maybe quite as much, or certainly wouldn't have discovered it as early. And it's really strange to think about. I suppose it's like you thinking what happened if you'd come to Exeter for your undergrad.
Yeah.
You know, it's
I mean, because I often say that I would have been I certainly would have been a lot happier. I have no doubt about that. But then it's this whole philosophy of amor fati and loving fate. What is it? One must love all that is... Oh, God. There's a quote from The Matrix, the video games, Enter the Matrix. One must want nothing to be different, not forwards, not backwards, not in all eternity, not only embrace what is necessary, but to love it. And it's so true. It's the classic thought experiment of, would you go back in time and change something about your past? And honestly, no, because I like the way that I am now. I mean, sure, there's stuff that I would like to change about me, but I wouldn't run the risk of changing stuff in the past that would cause me to be different now in ways that I do like. Yes. Yeah, sorry, we actually went quite deep for some reason.
Well, it's fitting for like critics' corner. It's
criticising ourselves.
The broadest sense of the word.
Right, well, shall we then pop on over to, I believe it's Patreon corner yet, the corner which we never forget. Top lad. So we're now in Patreon corner. This is just a very brief little corner where we want to say thank you to the people who donate on patreon.com/the Wikicast and allow us to do this show. It pays for our hosting, it pays for editing fees when Adam can edit the show for us. And we were actually discussing just before we started recording the possibility of bringing back some merch, because there is a big milestone coming up this year.
On the horizon. It is.
It is on the horizon. It's not near, but it's getting there. We've got to start thinking about it. So I think we could take some of this Wikicast fund that is now built up, because we previously would have also used it to travel to see each other and record extra content. But because I do definitely want to take up that idea that we had about painting Warhammer together and definitely. Maybe get drunk and do it. I think it'd be hilarious. But if we can't travel, then perhaps we can use it for this project. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see about that. So if you do choose to support the show, it's $1 or $5 a month. And if you are $5 a month, then you get to pick whether you're a top cat or a top dog, depending on whether you are correct or incorrect about which is the superior household pet. And I would like to thank the people who are correct, the people who support Team Cat. And those are Chocker Cat, Christopher Betterton, Colm Mansfield, Dan Hanvey, Isabella Strowski, John Mannion, Kenneth Kuzmirek, Layla Medina, Lewis Watson, Marsing Kosanash, says, Nafi Iftikhar, Oliver Burkhart, Oliver Craigie, Omar Miranda, Princess Andromeda, Rents Kirk, Riverward, Tom Withington, Trustworthy Ginger, and William Humphreys. Thank you so much for your support.
And I would like to say a massive thank you to our top dogs, clearly the senior of the two species.
First to die.
Lovely. Keeping
That's
it
all
nice
that means.
On the Wikicast. Very, very nice. So I'd like to say thank you to Alistair Fortune, Ben McMurtry, Colin J. Brown, Eric Davis, Eric Bolliger, Eve Sharples, Jay Wright, Codzo, Kyle Peary, Maggie, Peter Reed, and Samantha.
You're all stars, darling.
All stars, darling.
In your multitudes, scarce to be counted.
Whereas our top cats are clearly weaklings weighing 98
pints.
Oh, bless.
We should do a musical episode at some point.
So should. We should try. I wonder if there's a way of us doing like a. I imagine copyright won't allow it, but could we do like a watch party of
what, Rocky Horror or something?
Rocky Horror? Yeah.
Because I've wondered if we could do like a commentary track, like what Red Letter Media do. Because we could just, what English was that? Like what Red Letter Media do. Well, sorry, I regressed.
Very good. That was outstanding.
So, we could do that, because that's something you could play. It'd be easy for us to record. Yeah, all right, stop it. Stop it now.
No, but you said it so perfectly in last week's episode. There are a few things that really just get me,
Like a sniper rifle for the visor slit of your armour.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
So perhaps we could record one of those things, what Red Letter Media does.
Great.
That's something maybe we could do. We could pick it. Perhaps we could do a poll on Patreon. They could pick a movie. Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We should round out the show with just a few items of correspondence.
We should.
Top lad.
So it's that time. We're heading toward the end of the podcast. So we need to have a little bit of correspondence, and we're kicking off with quite a prestigious email, Simon. It's actually from the Lord Mayor of London. It's Tom Withington. He says, "Dear Big Cook and Little Cook, I'm writing to you from the Lord Mayor's office. I'm a long-time sufferer of the noises you make on an inconsistent basis."
We've been very consistent this year. Yeah. We've been really good. The
fortnightly episode is very fine. I think the first ramblings I listened to was episode 3.
Oh, wow.
Good Lord. And it's now episode 75.
We're so sorry.
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
We're sorry. We're sorry. We're so sorry. So it's a Nick Clegg reference for those of you who are not in the UK.
Wow. That's niche. That's good.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if either of you had been to Gloucester Cathedral. Have you been to Gloucester Cathedral?
I don't think so. I think I'm thinking of Wells Cathedral. So Wells is the one that's got the scissor vaulting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't think I've been to Gloucester, actually. I know it's meant to be a very fine cathedral.
I've never been. I want to go. And they recently received, as in the past decade or so, they received a massive heritage lottery grant that helped them a lot with stuff.
You, of course, would know.
Yes, indeed. And they did amazing things with the lighting in their Lady Chapel. But I digress. I've been lucky enough to sing in many concerts, singing pieces such as the Foy Requiem, Mozart's Requiem, and a personal favourite, The Armed Man. I would imagine Dan would have a particular interest, as many scenes from Harry Potter were filmed there. Indeed, they were. When all the corona stuff kicked off, I decided I couldn't just sit about, so I started working for Cheltenham Hospital, working on the distribution of PPE. Surprisingly, at the moment, the hospital is pretty calm. Yours faithfully, Tom Withington, Lord Mayor of London. P.S. In episode 5 of the podcast, I think, in episode 5...
Oh my God.
Simon sang part of a song and said it was Rage Against the Machine when it was actually System of a Down. This still annoys me to this day. Fantastic.
I'm so sorry. I am so sorry about that. My 2000s, it probably was 2000s, alt rock knowledge is clearly not up to scratch. I'm sorry. The official song of the Wikicast.
Amazing. And great stuff. Working for Cheltenham Hospital in the distribution of PPE. How brilliant.
We have another message here from Michael Jones, who says, bypassing astropathic relay, loading message. Greetings, Mrs. Clark and Moore. I hope this psychic transmission finds you well, and apologies for the dead astropath the reception of the message has caused. Well, humble servant of Chaos Undivided, Michael, once again for your corner of correspondence. Humble servant of Chaos Undivided here. I was pleased to hear my last transmission reached you without incident back in the 21st millennium when the show was still being produced. It must truly be Cinch's will that you receive my messages. I like this idea that he's just casting these out into a vortex and they're spat out into our Gmail. Isolation in the eye has been going well. I've been using this time to work on my long neglected university work and begin working on my grey pile of shame. No, not a grey pile of shame. It's a pile of future glory. That's the attitude. I have found Simon's daily streams and the backlog of Wikicast episodes great company for these dark days. As for embarrassing apothecarium stories, oh, thankfully I have none of note. I was waiting for that to go really dark. Outside that one visit after a night of partying at one of the Dark Prince's pleasure palaces. Following your discussion as to which faction Dan could start, I have some recommendations. Outside of Age of Sigmar, the Middle-earth strategy battle game, also by Games Workshop, might be of interest as they have some wonderful sculpts. Alongside this, there is also the Harry Potter miniatures game produced by Knights Models.
I'm sorry, what?
I did not know this was a thing.
I've just started sweating.
Has some lovely resin pieces and would be very much up Dan's Diagon Alley. I'd be more than happy to send Dan a set sat in my pile of shame knowing it would go to a loving home. Hang on, right, I'm going to... Knights Models, Harry Potter. Let's have a look.
Yeah.
Knights Models, Harry Potter. Because I know A Song of Ice and Fire has a very good, I've been told, miniatures game associated with it. Oh, Dan.
Oh, these look great.
Oh, Dan.
Whoa.
Oh, wow, there's a great Voldemort one. Holy shit.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Hey,
I think we found
cool.
we found your calling.
Wow. Oh, I can just feel my wallet getting lighter.
It's like those old Steam sale adverts, do you remember? It's like, are you ready for a miracle?
Look at the Dementor one. There's an unpainted Dementor.
Oh, that's sick.
That looks really cool. Goodness. Okay, well...
The way that I'm looking at the what is presumably the official paint job on Bellatrix. It's it's certainly something.
Oh, yeah.
Her eyes are... she's done a whole load of Molly. It's quite something. Goodness. Oh, they've got loads of... the Death Eater ones are really cool as well. I'm looking at one that's like Death Eaters, the trio, and then a bunch of spiders.
Oh, these are... Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm liking this a lot.
Oh, these are great. Oh, how does the system work? How does the combat work?
I have no idea. I don't care. I just sit and paint them and look at them, and then paint more and look at more.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Even I'm tempted. Holy shit. It's about Games Workshop prices. So Hagrid and Fang are like £18. Gryffindor students... Oh, wait, hang on. Who'd you get in the Order of the Phoenix is a set for £30. And that's like Moody, Tonks, Shacklebolt, Sirius, or two Siriuses actually, because you get them in dog form. And then who are the Gryffindor students?
Dog form. Sirius has activated dog form.
You've
form
activated
of a dog. My trap card.
Sirius came bounding over.
Oh, I can see me spending an awful lot of money on this.
Well, thanks for that, Michael. That's the Graduate Gamer. Thank you very much for that, for pickpocketing Dan's wallet. The last of the sacrificial serfs seems to be fading, thus my connection grows weak. So I'll end this transmission on a question for you both. If you could have any one guest on the podcast who is still alive, who would it be?
Wow, that's pretty tough, isn't it?
Oh, boy. Yeah, like any... Because it's not so much a question of who I would like to have a chat with. I think it's more who would be a really good fit for this kind of podcast. I think Stephen Fry would be a natural fit.
I was thinking Stephen Fry.
It's a bit
playing the long game and thinking who could you have as a guest that would be so incredible that it would just bring so much traffic to the podcast. You know?
Yeah.
In which case, like, let's have the Queen.
I always thought you were going to go for like Billie Eilish or something. You were like, no, the Queen.
No, Billie Eilish. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to having her on.
Billie, if you're listening, give us a shout. SpongyLedge@gmail.com. Pop us an email. Can you imagine if somebody voices to her and she's like, "Yeah, that sounds fun. I'll do that."
Yeah,
and you're like sweating. It's like if we actually had got Dodie on the show, you'd just be.
Don't joke about those kind of things. I'll fall over again.
So there we go. The Queen and Stephen Fry. Imagine if we got them together. That would be a hell of a show. The Wikicast, presented by Stephen Fry and the Queen and two losers. That would be how the newspapers report it. Do you think the Queen's ever been on a podcast? Would BB have first ever podcast? Hang on, Queen on a podcast. Can't imagine that she ever would have been.
She's probably done broadcasts that have been released as podcasts, but I don't think she's explicitly been on one.
She's not been on like Joe Rogan or
Under the Skin with Russell Brand.
Can you imagine if Louis Theroux interviewed the Queen? I think she would beat him. I honestly think that she would be able to not out awkward, but undo the awkwardness.
Yeah.
Like she's quite something. God bless her. God bless you, Madge.
So, Simon, what have we learnt today?
Well, we've learned about the remarkable life of Fortunato Arriola, who was a painter, a painter that we both quite like, actually. Mexican, lived in the US, died in the Bahamas after the boat that he was on slightly exploded. And after that, we talked about, oh, God, we actually packed a lot into this episode. You can tell that we're a bit socially isolated and we're not used to having, social interactions. What did we talk about? You had a choral piece of the week, courtesy of Tom Noon.
Brought to us from King's College, the choir of King's College London, and I'm very good at his too. We spoke about the Chomsky documentary, everything that we've been reading, the games you've been playing. You're buying some new armies for painting. Yeah,
and books and all manner of geeky things. Oh my! It's been and then we kind of went on a very did a lot of self-reflecting. It was a bit weird. We got in rather deeper than we normally do on this show, so apologies for that. For those of you, again, that's 2 shows in a row where we've had like content. We market this as non-content, but I think we've got to be careful, Dan. We're almost turning into a legitimate podcast.
Yeah, it's scary. Well, I think it's a clear example of how this isolation period is affecting us.
Please, government, end the shutdown. We want to just chat about nonsense. We don't want to do best. We don't want to talk about the concept of amor fati and Mexican art.
Yeah, indeed. And that's all for this week's episode. Don't forget to subscribe to us on your podcasting service of choice, join the Discord, and if you'd like to see our faces, check out our YouTube channel, Spongy and Electric.
Mexican artist recommendations, video game recommendations, and other recommendations on the recommendations can be recommendations to us at Spongy Recommendation at Recommendation. We'd love to hear from you.
That's very good. Really very good. Join us again for another tumble down the wiki rabbit hole, and we'll see you next recommendation. Bum 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 bum.
Hello, we don't need to sing the theme song every time, but I like that we do.
Oh, we've got to. We've got to sing it.
It feels wrong.
Yeah, if you don't sing it before we start recording, it doesn't feel like we're doing a serious podcast.
Do you think you're in the right key?
No, I think I'm slightly flat.
So hang on, you went bum.
No. And I think it's bum 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 bum.
Hang on, I'm going to play it now. Yeah, I think it was pretty much spot on. If anything, maybe slightly sharp, but pretty spot on.
Sharpness is better than flatness.
Yes, that was always what I told Michael. I was like, he's like, you've got a bit sharp, and I was like, well, I don't mind that so much as hearing Alex Gordon. Anyway,
cool, should we do that again? And I'll sing it in tune. Bum 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 bum. Hello, I'm Dan.
And I'm Simon.
And this is the Wikicast, a podcast where Wikipedia takes a... Oh, fuck.
Oh, you did
ruined it. Let's do it again. That can be in the outro. God, I haven't cocked up the intro in a long time.
This is all going in the outro. We've got like a 2-minute outro now.
Do you know what's thrown me off? Singing the tune in tune.